Everybody ready? Is everybody ready? Okay. Thank you all for being here today. This is our usual DAO weekly press conference, a little bit later in the week than usual, where we will do a couple of things. One is to talk about gun violence happening over the last week, and the other is to talk about a specific topic. The specific topic that we're going to be addressing today in a few moments has to do with another arrest of a fugitive. And this is a fugitive whose arrest photo was featured in one of our prior press conferences. We have been trying in a couple of different press conferences in the Southwest and also central parts of Philadelphia to highlight people who are on warrants for homicides that they have committed. We have now seen a good number of those individuals either turn themselves in or be apprehended and come back into custody. And we are happy to say to those fugitives who are still out there, turn yourself in. You can run, but you cannot hide. We will get you. And when we get you, it will not help you. It will not help your safety. It will not help the safety of the officers involved. If you run, it will not help you with the disposition of your case. You can run, but you cannot hide. Turn yourself in. I do want to start, before we introduce a lot of the wonderful people who are here, I do want to start out by wishing the officer who was involved in the shooting yesterday a full recovery. As you all know, the officer was injured. We are hopeful that his recovery will be swift, that it will be complete. The investigation into that matter is ongoing. I'm very limited in what I can say at this time, but I do want to thank Philadelphia Police Department and so many of our local and state law enforcement partners who put their lives on the line every day and had to do so in that particular circumstance. I have instructed our Victim Support Services Division to make necessary outreach through the Philadelphia Police Department chain of command to the officer, his family, and colleagues impacted by the trauma of this event. And I've also directed our internal victim advocates in collaboration with external partners to make outreach to the neighbors and community impacted by that shooting, because obviously the trauma from any shooting is so very real, as we all know. The DAO's Special Investigations Unit is working very closely with PPD's Officer Involved Shooting Unit and other PPD personnel in support of the investigation. And while I will not be able to answer additional questions or make additional statements beyond the scope of what we have just said, I want you to know that among the people who are here are the people in the DA's office closest to it, the people who are charged with investigating any officer-involved shootings, including going to the crime scene very shortly after it happens. Let me introduce to you the people who are present. We have First Assistant Robert Listenby here, ADA Joanne Pescator, who's the supervisor of the DAO's Homicide and Nonfatal Shooting Unit, is here. We have Melanie Nelson, who's the director of the CARES Unit, who is here and has information for school principals that she will be conveying today. Leandra Rataco, who is the chief of the DA's office Special Investigations Unit, and therefore the unit that has the duty of responding to officer-involved shootings and doing an independent investigation or somewhat independent investigation around that, is here. And Josh Barnett, an ADA who is supervised by Leandra Rataco, an ADA in the SIU unit, is here. Mr. Barnett actually went to the scene of the shooting and participated in that investigation. Let me turn quickly to some of the data that we have around gun violence. And this is for the time period. Well, data is for two different time periods, but the data I'm about to give you about the number of homicides is through 11:59 p.m. on May the 31st. That data is that there are 177 homicides year to date. Last year, there were 209 on this date last year, so that represents a reduction of 32. If we go back 2 years to 2021, it's a reduction of 38. This represents a 15% decrease over last year, The year prior, as you may recall, there was an annual decrease of 8% at that time. While these numbers are certainly showing some positive change to the families who've been impacted by these homicides and these shootings, and to ordinary Philadelphians, there's just too much loss of life, too much gun violence. That is continuing, and we all need to do everything we can to work together in the ways that actually work to continue improvement in this situation. During the week, May the 20th through May the 26th, and I say those dates because that is how we usually do it, and that's also how PPD reports a lot of their data. But during that week, May 20 through 26th, there were 8 homicides, 30 non-fatal shootings. Bear in mind that that time period does not include past weekend, and also bear in mind that 8 homicides, terrible as it is slightly better than what we saw during most of the pandemic period, which would be 10.5 homicides per week. There were, in that same time period, 5/20 through 26th, 137 gun-related incidents, many of them gun possession cases, but others cases involving violent crimes where a gun was in some way involved, at least possessed. Of the 137 gun-related incidents, 100 arrests were made by Philadelphia police or other law enforcement, and the DA's office opened 99 of those 100 arrests as criminal matters to be charged in Philadelphia County. The bail set was disappointing, as usual, but that's what happens when we have a cash bail system that just keeps failing us. If we turn to some of the shooting incidents that have occurred in the past week or so, I will refer mostly to 3 of them. The first one is a shooting incident, a homicide that was also a quadruple shooting, so a total of 4 victims, 3 juvenile for the non-fatal shootings and 1 adult for the homicide. This was on Sunday, May the 28th, in the 4500 block of Mulberry Street in the 15th Police District at about 9:22 p.m. 4 victims, 3 juveniles, were shot, and all victims were transported by private vehicle to Jefferson Torresdale Hospital and placed in stable condition initially. Victim number 1, a 15-year-old black male, was shot twice in each foot. Victim number 2, a 15-year-old black male, was shot once in the left ear and once in each leg. Victim number 3, a 15-year-old black male, was shot once in each leg and once in the buttock. Victim number 4, was a 66-year-old black male, was found suffering from a gunshot wound to the head. He was pronounced. No arrest has been made by PPD. The investigation remains ongoing. Anyone with information should contact PPD's homicide unit at 215-686-3334. Second shooting incident, also a homicide, occurred on Monday, May the 29th in the 2400 block of North Clarion Street in the 22nd Police District at about 12:18 a.m. A 16-year-old black male was found with gunshot wounds to the chest. He was later pronounced on scene by medics. There is no arrest by PPD at this time. Again, it's an ongoing investigation. Anyone with information, please come forward. Please give us that information. Contact PPD's homicide unit at 215-686-3334. And the third and final shooting that I will discuss is a non-fatal shooting incident that occurred on Monday, May the 29th in the 1500 block of Market Street in the 9th Police District at about 11:39 p.m. A 19-year-old black male was found unresponsive and suffering from a gunshot wound to the leg. He was transported to Jefferson, where he was placed in critical but stable condition. No arrest has been made. Because this is not a homicide, it is being investigated by the PPD's shooting investigation group. Those detectives have a different number than the homicide unit. The shooting investigation group number is 215-686-8270. We need your help. We need your information. We need you to come forward, and we need you to know that you will be protected in every way this office possibly can protect you if you come forward with that information. Hasn't been too long since I was actually on the phone with our partners at the U.S. Attorney's Office, federal law enforcement, to make sure that a particular witness was protected with their help. We will do what is necessary. We will do everything in our power to make sure that you are protected and treated with respect if you come forward and provide truthful information about any of these terrible shootings. It is now my pleasure to introduce Melanie Nelson, who will give a report on behalf of the DAO's Victim Support Services Division, a division that includes the unit she runs, the CARES unit, and that, of course, is the Crisis Assistance, Response, and Engagement for Survivors unit. Melanie has a special message for school principals today.
Thank you, DA Krasner. The Memorial Day weekend was very heartbreaking. The CARES unit worked tirelessly to be able to provide free services to co-homicide survivors. Today, I want to extend love as the whole district attorney's office to the principals and support staff of all of the schools. Doesn't matter whether it's within the Philadelphia School District or the charter schools. We reach out to those principals when we learn that there is a school-age child who has lost their life, when there is a school-age child who has been affected by gun violence. We understand you have counselors. We understand you have those great supports in place, but guess what? You need therapy as well. Those are your children when they are in your care. We care about you, and we want to be able to offer those free services to you as well. There is a school safe advocate office within the Philadelphia School District. That number is 215-656-5381. Whenever one of your babies is affected by gun violence, please utilize that number. All services are free. I try to contact the principals when a student has lost their lives to be able to put services in place. Another one is network of neighbors. Again, we want the staff to have services, and we want the students to have services. Peace and love.
Thank you, Melanie. So at this time, we're going to switch to our second topic, and that topic has to do with fugitives. More specifically, that topic has to do with the apprehension of defendant Raymond Harcum, H-A-R-C-U-M, date of birth 2/2/1990. Mr. Harcum has been brought into custody by state police after he was spotted in a vehicle. Mr. Harcum has been on an active warrant for a homicide for a period of time, and he was brought in without injury to anyone, thank goodness. But I also want to make sure that you all understand that Mr. Harcum's name is coming up at a DAO press conference for the second time. It came up previously when we were highlighting, at the suggestion of ADA Joanne Pescatore, chief of our homicide non-fatal shooting unit, and some of the people who partner with us at the homicide division of the Philadelphia Police Department. Mr. Harcum's face, and yes, we can put up the photograph, Mr. Harcum's face and name came up when we highlighted about 10 homicide fugitives in Southwest at one press conference, and then we highlighted about 10 more in Central earlier. We will be in the Northwest next week. And when we are in the Northwest, where I, by the way, lived for 26 years, we will be putting up more pictures and more names of people who are fugitive on active homicide warrants. What we have seen is that both directly and indirectly, people who are on active warrants, when the media cover these press conferences and they elevate the reality that they have been out there for too long, and law enforcement needs the public's help to bring them into custody, what we have seen is some of them pretty quickly turn themselves in. And we have seen that some of them are located with the help of calls from the public. And some of them behave differently than they would have behaved before we did those press conferences. So we are delighted to see at this point that there have been a number of the specific individuals we highlighted who have come into custody since those press conferences occurred. I think it's vindication of ADA Pescator's good idea and the Homicide Division's good idea to do this kind of press conference. And we will be doing at least 2 more, one in the Northwest, and then one after that in order to highlight fugitives from other areas of the city. I think probably the best thing to do at this point, rather than call up people to say very limited things on these topics, because there's a limited amount that can be said on some of these topics, probably the best thing to do is go straight to Q&A. Everyone will be given an opportunity to ask a question. Let me just say one more thing as we put this photograph up. It has been the DA's policy during this administration very seldom to use arrest photos of individuals. The exceptions that have existed are specifically about people who are wanted, people who are fugitives, and the purpose of putting their faces up was not sensational coverage. The purpose of putting their faces up was to enable the public to assist in bringing them into custody, or in certain other types of cases, to enable other victims to recognize the person who had violated them in the past based upon that photograph. We are using this photograph today simply because it is the photograph that led to the apprehension. After it was published, it led to the apprehension of this particular defendant. Are there any questions? I guess we'll just go from left to right. We'll do it that way. Yes, please.
And officer involved shooting last night. Are you representing an officer?
I'm going to defer to the people most closely involved because I think they have a tighter grip on the line of information and what should be put out there or not. So I'm going to ask ADA Leandro Rotacco and also Mr. Barnett to come forward and say as little or much as they think is appropriate.
Good afternoon. Unfortunately, no, is the answer. The investigation is still very much ongoing. If and when the officer's name is going to be released, that is generally handled by the Philadelphia Police Department, and any other information is covered under our investigation, or that is currently open and very active.
Not even the decedent's name?
No, especially not the decedent's name. That's part of what we are investigating currently.
And was the incident captured on body-worn camera? Are you guys reviewing that footage?
We are reviewing any and all cameras and video that was collected. There was a significant amount of video collected on the scene by the investigators last night, and we are working our way through it.
So was he wearing a body-worn camera?
There were several police officers that were on scene. There are several different kinds of video that need to be reviewed. So when you say was he wearing a body-worn cam, there were a number of people. There's a number of cameras to be able to review.
Okay. So was every officer who was involved in there when the man was shot, when the officer was shot, did they have body-worn cameras on?
I'm not able to answer that right now.
All right, thank you. So now that I have a list, let me go to my list. Tom McDonald, do you have any questions, sir?
In the case of Mr. Harkin, what was it that gave you the advantage to make the arrest?
Well, needless to say, the arrest was made by state troopers. Let me see how much of that information can be put out at this time. ADA Pescator?
Thank you. Thank you, DA Krasner. Good afternoon. State Police did a regular old traffic stop and ran Mr. Harkin and realized that he had a warrant for murder. He did try and flee from them, but he was in fact apprehended. And I just want to note for the record, this warrant was gotten for him approximately 14 months ago, so he's been on the run for a while.
Mr. McDonald, anything else? All right, thank you.
The victim? The victim's name was Khalil Harris, and the incident happened back on March 19th of 2022.
All right, let's see. Jennifer Lee, Fox 29.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question.
Sure.
We saw surveillance video that WPD just released from the SEPTA bus. They're looking for a teen who is between 14 to 17. In addition, we're also hearing that perhaps the shooting outside the emergency room
But, I mean, I feel like I'm just repeating what every Philadelphian knows, but it's obviously incredibly heartbreaking to see so many young people who are being shot, who are being injured, and to see other young people on the other end of the gun. It's absolutely heartbreaking. It's something that we all have to work on every day, and a lot of us are losing sleep over it, frankly. However, the one who has the more specific information in relation to your questions, I believe, would be ADA Pescator. To the extent she can answer, I'm sure she will.
I don't have any further information at this point with regard to the Temple emergency room shooting. I know that those people were outside the emergency room. I don't know why. And then they were shot at. And that's all the information I have.
So you haven't heard they could be connected to another shooting?
I don't have any information.
All right, thank you very much. John, 6ABC. Nothing? Okay. All right, Mr. Cipriano, big trial.
Mr. Krasner, in the case of Corinne Buddha, the paralegal who claimed she was strangled by Leo, your former deputy campaign director, who was subsequently appointed as the DEAO's Director of Community Engagement, your office referred Corinne Buddha's summary retail theft arrest to the AG's office because of a potential conflict of interest. Your first assistant district attorney referred that case to the AG because there is, quote, potential for an actual or apparent conflict of interest on the part of the district attorney or his office, unquote. What is a more serious and more readily apparent conflict of interest? An allegation of aggravated assault and strangulation against a high-level employee in your office, or theft from a store by a low-level employee?
Conflicts are always important, and when you have an employee of the DA's office who is accused of a crime, be that crime a murder, which we have had, or be that crime retail theft, the general approach, depending on specifics, is to refer it to the Attorney General's office. The first assistant did what is routinely done, has been done in the past in those situations. Do you have any other questions?
Well, but it wasn't done in the case of the others.
Do you have any other questions?
Okay. Mr. Krasner, for the third year in a row, Tiger LLP, of which, according to your statement of financial interest, you are a 40% owner of, as of March 31st, sir, has failed to pay real estate taxes in the amount of $54,019.68. Why do you continually neglect to pay the taxes that fund the Philadelphia School District? And is it appropriate, sir, to continually not pay your taxes when you're the city's chief law enforcement officer?
Sir, as you are well aware, that piece of property is not owned by me. It is owned by a group of people. And as I'm sure you're also aware, an awful lot of property owners have gone through some very difficult times during the pandemic. What I can tell you about it is that we have always disclosed what that situation is, and we will continue to do so. Thank you very much.